I'd like to next introduce Dr. Katharine Hayhoe. She directs the Climate Science Center at... Yeah. So Katharine's done. She directs the Climate Science Center at Texas Tech University. She's a leading climate scientist. She contributes to the National Climate Assessment. She's one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people. She's an American Geophysical Union award-winning communicator, and she's also an evangelical Christian. With her unique background and skills, Katharine can and does talk to anyone about climate change, including US presidents and preachers, and they never run away. Please help me welcome Katharine Hayhoe.
Thank you, Jay. It's great to be back here again. Last time we talked about some interesting issues. We talked about climate, politics, faith, what they have to do with each other. If you're interested in that, there's a video. Tonight, though, we're talking about the future. And when we look at what people want from the future, we often get the impression that everybody wants something completely different and 100% conflicting. Do you ever get that feeling? Yeah. But what I'm going to suggest to you is if we really look at what we truly want, what makes our lives meaningful, I think that we have much more in common than what divides us. What do we really want? We want a safe place to raise a healthy family. Who doesn't want that? We really do want clean water to drink. Even the people who say that pesticides aren't bad for you, they won't drink a glass of water with pesticides in it. We want sufficient food to eat, good food, preferably local food that tastes good. I still remember the time we had some friends over and one of them asked if they could have a banana. I said, sure. She ate the banana and she said, what kind of banana is this? I've never had a banana like this before. I said, it's organic. We want clean air to breathe. We want safe places to live and homes to live in. And we want a healthy economy. These are the things that we want. We all want these. No matter who we are, no matter where we live, no matter what part of the economy or the political spectrum we're on. And we have had many of these things. Most of us here are the lucky ones who have these things. How have we, and by we I primarily mean Western society, how have we gotten these things? Why did world population skyrocket just a few hundred years ago? There is one main reason why we live such comfortable lives today where most of us do not have to worry about getting sick from the water we drink or about not having enough to feed our children, and that is the Industrial Revolution. We have to be honest here. The Industrial Revolution has brought us an enormous amount of benefits. Just imagine for 1 second what your life would be like without a refrigerator. I know. You don't often think about your refrigerator. What would your life be like without electricity? We'd all be home in bed. What would it be like without personal transportation? And most importantly of all, what would your life be like without modern medicine? I know what my life would be like. I'd be dead. Not a joke. Will fossil fuels take us into the future? Will they be able to supply the more than 1 billion people who live around the world without energy? Yes, there's over 1 billion people. Out of the 7 billion of us, there's 1 billion who don't have electricity. They live in energy poverty. Will fossil fuels be able to supply their needs the same way that they've supplied our needs up until this point? And will they be able to continue to supply our needs in the future? I believe that the answer to that is no, and there's 4 reasons why it's no. The most practical reason is who needs energy the most? People who don't have it. And when you look at the remaining fossil fuel resources in the world, they don't have them either. So saying to people who live in countries that don't have vast gas and oil resources like we do here in North America, saying to them, oh, do it the same way we did it, is like saying to them, oh, indebt yourselves to us so we can sell you what we have. It just doesn't work. It is not the answer for the world. The second reason why fossil fuels are not the answer is what Michael talked about. They're not even economically viable in many parts of the world, including Texas today. You probably have heard of how Fort Hood went with wind and solar over natural gas because they could save taxpayers over $150 million. Yeah, that's good. The other picture is from near where I live. This is Floydada, where shiny white wind turbines are replacing rusting oil rigs. The future is different, and trying to hold back the tide, trying to invest in coal today, is like trying to invest in horse farms and buggy whips after Henry Ford had already rolled out the Model T. The fourth reason why fossil fuels are not the answer touches on our next speaker's expertise, and that is the fact that they pollute our air. Fossil fuel pollution is responsible for, get this, 200,000 deaths in the United States alone every year. Globally, 16% of all deaths in the entire world are attributable to pollution. Who are the 200,000 people who die every year in the United States? Now just imagine for a second if terrorism killed 200,000 people in the US every year. We'd be in a very different situation, wouldn't we? Who is it who is dying of lung disease, who is dying of asthma, who is dying of chronic diseases that are exacerbated and sometimes even caused by air pollution? People who are poor, people who are disadvantaged, people who cannot afford a nice home that is not beside a freeway or in a polluted neighborhood. Fossil fuel use is a profoundly unjust issue that exacerbates the gap between haves and have-nots. And the fourth reason is what you can't see in this picture. You're looking at steam coming out of smokestacks. You can't see the carbon dioxide. But it's there. Just because it's invisible doesn't mean it isn't real. The fourth reason why fossil fuels are not the answer is because they are causing our climate to change. We know that our planet already has a perfect blanket that keeps us almost 60 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than we would be otherwise. That perfect blanket is made up of heat-trapping gases where the sun's energy shines down and hits the earth, and the earth heats up and gives off heat energy. And just like a blanket keeps you warm on a cold night, our natural blanket of heat-trapping gases keeps us at just the perfect temperature for life. If this is natural, you might say, well, what's the problem? The problem is that we are adding an extra blanket, a blanket that our planet does not need and was not intended to have. That extra blanket is trapping more heat, and our planet is running a fever. You might say, well, but doesn't climate change all the time? Especially if we live in Texas. All you have to do is go to a movie. It is 95 degrees outside. You walk out of the movie, it's 50 degrees. Yes, our weather does change all the time. Our weather is the record hot or wet, the record dry or cold. But we're not talking about a change in the weather. We're talking about a change in our climate, which is the long-term average over at least 20 to 30 years. It is changing. And why does this matter? It matters for our future, and here's why. This is where I live. It's very flat. It is so flat that you could drive up I-27, and some of you may have done this. You could drive up I-27, not only staying on the highway, you could even stay in your own lane if you were driving along looking in the rearview mirror. I don't recommend it. Please don't do it. But you could. Why? Because the road is dead straight. So where you were 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes ago, where you were is a perfect predictor of where you're going to be in the future, right? A perfect predictor, that is, until you get to plain view. Anybody ever driven up I-27 to Plainview? Right before Plainview, you hit this giant curve in the road with a row of concrete grain silos on the curve. What happens if you were driving up the road looking in your rearview mirror? I hope you know. Thank you. Yes. You end up, let's just say, in the wrong place. Why? Because the future is different than the past. So planning for the future based on the past is like driving down the road looking in the rearview mirror. If climate is changing, which it is, and we plan for our water, our energy, our food, our infrastructure, our economy based on the historical conditions, we are going to run off the road. That is why when we talk about the future, we must talk about the curve in the road, because we are driving a giant bus down this road that is filled with the entire population of Texas, and the world really, and we want this bus to stay on the road. So we have to prepare for the curve that is coming up, because it is real, and in fact we are already on it. That is why climate matters to the future. It doesn't just matter because of the long-term change, it's changing our variability as well. We care about a changing climate because it exacerbates the risks that we already face today. And what state faces more weather and climate risks than Texas? This is the number of weather and climate disasters that have caused at least $1 billion worth of damage since 1980. Why is Texas number one? Because we get it all. We get droughts, floods, hurricanes, wildfires. Yeah, we get snow. Tornadoes. I could keep on going, but I ran out of space. We get everything already, naturally. And why do we care about a changing climate? Because it exacerbates the risks we already face. Who faces more risks than Texas? Therefore, who is more vulnerable than Texas? Disaster is a factor of multiple things. How many people and how much infrastructure is exposed, the changes that we're seeing in our climate and weather events as a result of a changing climate, and our vulnerability if we're not steering for the curve in the road. If we aren't, our risk goes up, and that's not what we want. We've already seen how this plays out. In one word, Harvey. Exposure, one of the biggest cities in North America, with millions of people and billions of dollars worth of infrastructure. Vulnerability, sitting right on the Gulf of Mexico, with crumbling infrastructure, inadequate zoning, and outdated floodplain management. And then you get the weather and the climate hazard. Hurricanes are a natural part of life, but we're getting more rainfall associated with them, and they're getting stronger, and sea levels rising. When we look to the future, our exposure is increasing because more and more people are moving to Texas. 1,500 every day, wasn't it? Our weather and climate risks are also increasing, and that is why it is so important to decrease our vulnerability, because that is the only way that we are going to decrease our risk. Why do we want to decrease our risk? Because we all, no matter who we are, we all want a safe place to live, to raise our families, to give them the resources and the benefits that we ourselves have enjoyed. Right? Thank you.